David, thanks for joining me here. Just want to go right back to the beginning of your career at Nottingham.
Yeah.
You joined at such a young age, and you stayed until you was 31. I guess the first question is, why did you stay that long at Nottingham?
Um, that's a good question. I think like I've sort of born and bred, or I think I moved to Nottingham when I was a baby, like 6 months old or something. But I've only ever known Nottingham and um, loved playing rugby there all the way through the age groups, literally from my first. I've got a trophy for best effort award that's dated 1988. And I was born in '82, so that's why I know it was six when I started. And I think effort you tend to give out the best effort award to those that are like not very good, but they tried hard. So I think that was me at the beginning. But I remember I used to love just getting muddy. We didn't play rugby at my school. It was only football. So my dad was a big rugby fan, so he sort of got me into it. And yeah, no, just loved the game, loved the friends that you'd make. There always, to me, seems to be a slightly different friendship and relationship built through rugby because of just the nature of the game, how physical it is, how you have to rely on each other. And yeah, rugby taught me so much, shaped how I was I guess, how I've become as a person to some degree. And then yeah, the Nottingham Rugby Club and the people there, particularly the likes of Simon Beetham, Glenn Delaney, when he was coaching, gave me a lot of opportunity, and I never really wanted to go anywhere else. I when I went to university, I ended up choosing Loughborough because it meant that I could come back and still play. So um, the club was supported me, and I wanted to give back and support them, and that was that went all the way through until I retired through my head injury, where again the club supported me to get myself back on my feet through that, which I'll always be grateful for.
Just touching on that university comment there, obviously you went to university and studied materials engineering, and you carried on playing as well. How did you find that combination of the both?
Yeah, I think probably at that stage not that bad. Like we when I first played my first sort of game and for the first team when I was 18, it was semi-professional during in that era. So I went through that transition from semi-professional to professional with this during that period that the club had done the same thing. So I'd never known only full-time rugby. So you know, to me, it was just the same as doing your A levels and playing.
Mm,
Arguably, A levels were harder than university.
mm.
Um, so yeah, no, it was yeah, because I'd not known anything different, and I think for me, I was someone that having something else to focus on and something else to think about actually helped me. I always need some sort of distraction outside of rugby. Otherwise, you just sort of constantly thinking about rugby and stewing that over in your head 24 hours a day. Yeah, it's good to have some other level of distraction and sort of brain stimulation, I guess, really.
And obviously, you went on to make well over 300 appearances for the club, and as you just mentioned there, you started out at a semi-professional model, then it moved into the professional model. So, you've pretty much seen it all at Nottingham, and obviously the statements that have come out from the club not too long back saying that the club will be going back into a semi-professional model. Um, just a word on how that works. I know you've already touched on it, but obviously um, there will have to be a combination of working and playing rugby at the same time.
Yeah. Um, I think for some people, it potentially works out better. I think the biggest thing for Nottingham Rugby and other clubs like Nottingham in the Championship, there's some fantastic clubs in the Championship, and um, the struggle that we always had was, trying to get to the dizzy bright lights of the Premiership was, we got close on a couple of occasions, but it almost put us out of business as well because it was such a strain in finding a model and a place that is sustainable for the long term future of clubs, not just Nottingham but other clubs in the Championship. I think that's of the utmost importance, and I don't think people we have. If you ask people that are around during that era when we were semi-professional and um, we had some of our fondest memories of playing during those periods. The old ground at Island Avenue, and the fans would say some of the same things as well. So I don't see it as necessarily a negative thing, more of a sustainable decision for the future, which is what's most important.
Mm. And then obviously you went into teaching and other roles whilst still playing rugby. What did that mean training wise for you? How did that pan out?
Yeah, so I did a teacher degree after my engineering, and that was really challenging, because we were then moving into, like, I mean, probably 85-90% of the squad were full time at that point, and then there was just a handful of us managing it around jobs. That meant going to school and teaching Monday to Friday, and then going straight from there to training Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday,
Mm.
and then trying to skip some Friday afternoons off from school to go to travel to Penzance and things. Look, our headmaster was actually a season ticket holder at the rugby club and a big fan, so he
That
slipped him
helped
a
out a
couple
little
of
bit
free
then.
tickets, and yeah, he let you get off, but yeah, it was pretty full on. I probably but the interesting thing was, like, it was really full on, and there was that first year of teaching is difficult for any new teacher. There was a number of my other peers that were sort of, um, you know, struggling, or as we would complain with the amount of work that you had to do. And there were times where I was thinking, but I'm going to rugby every single night of the week at the moment, and you haven't got
Mm.
that commitment,
Yeah.
and they're still struggling. But I guess it taught you to be quite efficient with your time, essentially. But I mean, again, I finished top try scorer in the league that year. Um, it seemed to work for me. But
Mm.
ultimately, later on, I went full time, and that worked out as well. I think it just, yeah, it's just, there's a time for everything, and I think you learn a lot along the way, don't you?
Mm. And that's the good thing about Nottingham is that there are so many opportunities within the city, and if not in the city, it's a city that is within reach of other major cities where again there might
Yeah.
be different opportunities. So um, an incredible amount of doors that are open for players that are wanting to come play and work at the same time.
Yeah, and the network you've got, like you said, you've got the network of, like, you're right in the middle of, like, the country, and how easy it is to get to lots of different places. But then they say you got the business network as a whole in Nottingham, and but then you've also got those sort of sections of the number of business people that are involved in the rugby club that are able to plug in. And I know lots of guys that I played with did various sort of work experience things at different places. You've got Alex Shaw now, he owns Kickback Coffee, so a coffee roasting company. Rupert Cooper went into is a chef, and he's got his own cookery school now. So they both got experience with some of the businesses that were sponsoring and supporting the rugby club, getting plugged into those people, getting the experience, and then it's helped them post rugby career. Because even if we're going to be, even if you take out the, like, semi-professional professional conversation, we're all in that situation where even if you was full time, when you retire, and it's going to be early 30s, mid 30s if you're really, really lucky, or you have a career-ending injury or whatever. But whatever happens at this level of rugby, or any really, you're going to have to get a job at the end of it doing something. So I've always been, yeah, I get passionate to a degree of that. We need to be preparing people, not just in rugby. There's lots of other, like, I've worked sort of doing strength and conditioning now, and lots of other different sports where you've got people that are Olympians and then they retire at 30, and then they need a job. We're not all making, like, money to be able to retire like a Premiership footballer, for example. So it's important that we're preparing people post sport to be able to go into the working environment and have a career that they enjoy, because that transition out of like sport into no sport is quite a difficult one mentally anyway, let alone the financial implications if you haven't got a career to fall back on.
But of course, that makes it easier if you're working and playing for your transition.
Exactly that, and well, that makes semi-professional even more of a better. If you look at your life, if you zoom out and look at your life as a whole, you might actually be better off playing semi-professional rugby, where you've got a career going that you can then step into, than just doing a block of professional rugby, but that doesn't actually set you up for the rest of your life, which is hopefully a lot longer than your rugby career. The rest of your life is going to be.
If working isn't what a player wants to do, that there's two outstanding universities in Nottingham. Obviously, you've got Nottingham Trent Uni and Union of Nottingham that a player can go to. They can do the study in there, and again they can play at the same time.
Well, Loughborough's down the road where I went to as well. Like there's plenty of options.
You've obviously picked up quite a lot of business links through Nottingham and through playing rugby, as you've already touched on, which I assume has helped you further down the line in your working career.
Yeah, no, and it's great to be able to reach out to people for, even if it's just for advice, or whether often it's times where you might know they might be able to connect you with somebody that they've connected with, because they have that network, and we all then, I guess, get to benefit from each other's network of people that we're touching base with, and you start to share and collaborate with that, and that's where things in the business world, like relationship and trust, is massive. And so when someone comes recommended through someone that you've built that trust and relationship with, it makes doing business an awful lot easier.